Yes. All right, guys. We got episode 46, I believe. We got a special guest in Brett Perry. I don't know why my camera just went blank there. State finalist in 2016.
14, I think.
Jeez Louise, I'm getting old. Holy cow. State finalist, went to the University of Buffalo where he was a MAC champion, conference champ. We have some really good D1 wrestlers coming out of the club, but Brett is in a small group there of guys that are winning conference championships. It's a big deal. And then he went NCAA qualifier senior year at 197 pounds. And what's very interesting about Brett is he's back in the fold now at the club for over a year now as one of the coaches. So that's really cool to have Brett. So Brett, just like I start every interview, how'd you get in wrestling in the first place?
Well, both my brothers, Joey and Chris, wrestled. So they were always wrestling in, middle school and high school. And I was like the little kid just kind of following along. So I think, like second or fifth grade, I did some of the John Jay, I think it was called Minutemen back then with Dirk Boersma. So I remember in second grade I started there, but I was big, so I wrestled all the bigger kids. They beat me up, so I think I stopped wrestling for a while. And then finally in middle school, I started taking it a little more serious. So I kind of just, Joey wrestled, Chris wrestled, and it just seemed right that I followed that path as well.
Wow.
Brett, did your dad wrestle as well?
Yeah, so he wrestled. He ended up only wrestling his junior and senior year of high school. He was a big football player, and he went to Rider. He wrestled a little there, but he had a lot of injuries and things. So he only wrestled 2 years, but I think he took third at sections his senior year.
And was he a Mayapack guy?
Yeah, he was Mayapack.
Oh, so okay, all right.
Third in
so
the
he
section
grew up
on,
with the Bellucci's.
Yeah.
Third in the section
family
on
Mayapack.
third in the section on 2 years experience is really impressive.
Yeah.
I wonder what year that was.
Well, he was born in 55, so he must have been, what's that, like 73, 72?
Probably something like that. It's interesting, Brett. You remind me a little bit, and I know you're buddies with Coach Carano, who's a great guy and a great coach.
Yeah.
Will Carano kind of had a similar thing, I feel like, where he started very young, and then he didn't want to wrestle anymore. I don't know if you know about this, Coach Sebas, but he didn't really want to wrestle anymore when he was like in youth. He wasn't really too into it. And then in middle school, he kind of the fire lit up under him again, and he started to kind of progress, and he really wanted it. And sometimes you find it interesting when your dad's a wrestling coach, you have two older brothers that wrestled. I don't want to say there's pressure, but it's like you're expected to wrestle. Everybody's like, oh, Brett's definitely going to wrestle. Like, Joey and Chris wrestle, like, all these things. Did you feel like that when you first started getting into it? Like, oh, I got to kind of live up to my brothers, or was it your own thing?
I never had pressure from my family. Like my dad or my brothers, they never put that pressure on me. But it's funny. I think some other people do. I remember being up at sectionals up at Pace, and I was walking around with the other little kids. I was there for Chris and Joey, and one of them, one of the older guys, was like, "Oh yeah, when you're in high school, you're going to be a 2-time or 3-time section champ." I was like, "Oh God, like I don't think I could do that." It looks so far away when you're that young.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that, Coach, is Chris's junior year when he got hurt in the finals. I was 2 matches after him. So you were probably there. You probably watched me wrestle and didn't even know, eventually I'd be working with you and then we'd be working together, after that. Because I knew Chris and Joey when they were in high school. Joey always wrestled Greg I and Frank a lot.
Yeah.
They used
to
have
had some matches.
Yeah. So I remember the Perrys really well before Brett even was in the picture. Well, he was in the picture, but not in the big scene yet. So did you have any success when you were wrestling in the youth circuit a little before you kind of slowed down before modified?
Not too much. I remember being in 5th grade and we were in the I think it was like the New York State tournament, which consisted of like 5 kids my weight. And I think I lost in like the finals after winning 1 match. So I'd win some, probably win a couple more than I lost. But I wasn't really a fan of it, and I hated losing. So that was like just kind of like a terrible thing about wrestling. When you lose, it's like all on you, so you just like feel it so much more.
Coach,
yeah, that's one of the things you got to work. One of the outcomes that could happen.
I think Brett still kind of hates losing, because he doesn't lose very often. But you could tell, watching the guys wrestle and stuff, and he's great. Like he's great, a great corner guy, a great, obviously knows his stuff in and out. But you could sense the competitiveness, and I think it's a good thing. As long as you control yourself, and Brett does.
I think with these high-level athletes and people that have been around the games of wrestling a long time, yeah, they hate losing in the moment, but they reflect on it so fast and get over it so fast and use it as a positive so fast that it's a great lesson in life.
Yeah.
Nothing really keeps
Absolutely.
a wrestler down. You know, you could have a bad outcome, and you know you're right back at work the next day.
Right. You know, it's funny when I was in I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but even in high school, if I had like bad practices, you know, I wrestled with Dale White, so he beat me up a lot especially when I was younger. And Chris was my coach, so I'd like drive back and I'd be in a bad mood because I had a bad practice, and he'd have to like talk me, you know, off the cliff a little bit. But so even like in practice, getting taken down and stuff, it always got to me.
Well, you
That
jumped
was tough.
levels. He jumped levels, coach. We'll get into that a little later, but like
Yeah.
he made some really big jumps. You know, and coach, what you were saying, I find that to be interesting because for the most part, you do see guys that have you know, more experience, right? Like college wrestling experience, stuff like that. Yeah, they do take, as coaches, they take losses more personally. But I totally agree with you, coach. Like I see the turnaround's different, right? It's like back to work. You know, all right, this didn't happen. How do we figure it out? How do we learn from it? And I think that's a really good point. And I think Brett is that type of person. You know, I think he's going to try to, you know, we're not going to dwell on it. We'll figure it out and we'll move forward. You know, you didn't move up to varsity when you were in middle school, correct?
No. I
Because
think no, I didn't. I was a little bigger, and I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't strong for my weight compared to like those, you know, 99-pound middle schoolers.
Yeah, you were a bigger guy. When did you start doing? And this is actually I can't remember. I remember your junior and senior year really well.
Right.
I remember knowing you a little bit younger, but when did you really start doing year-round wrestling?
So after my freshman year of high school,
Not funny.
I remember I came into Deagles. I think it must have been going into the summer of 10th grade I started.
Okay.
And I remember going in there, and the first John Deagle, he asked me, he's like, do you want to wrestle with the high school or the elite guys? And I was so nervous, you know, because, you know, Deagle and all these higher level guys are there. So I don't even know what I ended up saying, but I think I just got thrown in with some of the bigger guys.
I definitely remember you when you first started coming because you were, you know, Chris and Joey's brother and your dad. I would talk to your dad. But I remember you being a hardworking, tough kid. And Coach Sabellis, something interesting too is I always forget. Like I feel like a lot of the years kind of like now that I've been doing it for 10 or 11 years or whatever it's been, they kind of like, you know, go together. And I think about like Khalid and Youssef and that class, Adam, as being like one of my first classes I really worked with, but that's not true. Like I was very close with Brett, who was 2 years before them. And then before Brett, I think was like a Jacob Berkowitz time a bit.
Right.
And I worked with him a good amount too. So like, but when Brett came to the club, it was probably around 2011-ish. And it was probably my first or second full year at the club, you know? And I think what happened for us is that when Brett first came there, you weren't the automatic superstar. So I was a newer coach. So I worked with you a lot because you weren't the senior year Brett Perry yet. And you weren't in John's like, okay, this guy, we got to pedigree this guy for a state title right now. Like he wasn't there yet. And I think that's kind of what built mine and your relationship, because now at the club, you know, it's a little different because we have Brett now. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you know, I was working with all the really good kids, right, in the club and stuff like that. But when Brett was there, it wasn't as much. It was me and Brett pretty much. And John was pretty much dealing with everything else there. Let's not go too far into it, but how was your, you know, your first taste maybe of year-round wrestling and club wrestling? Like how was like summer going into sophomore year? How was that for you?
It was definitely a great experience. And I remember wrestling with all the higher level guys. I think it was it Seagal or something from Head Hut? I can't remember. It was Steve Siegel? Siegel.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil Siegel. And then
Pascalini.
Yeah.
Wow,
And I even remember I wrestled with Scotty Wims on like the second day of practice. I think he like front headlocked me and I was like, couldn't breathe. I was like, oh man, this is tough. But you know, I definitely learned a lot and just built more confidence through that whole, I don't know, 3-4 months, whatever it was before the season.
Yeah, I mean, Brett was always a super hard worker. Coach, do you kind of remember when you saw Brett on the scene, you're like, this kid's going to be something, or was that a little later in his career? When
It was junior, senior year. I mean, he was a stud.
He was winning. Yeah, he was pretty dominant for the most part those 2 years. Brett, how was your sophomore year after a year? Well, actually, let's not get ahead of ourselves. How was your first year in high school? What happened your freshman year? Because we need
freshman year, I think my record was I had 9 wins and 18 losses.
Wow.
Yeah, man, I lost a lot.
That's crazy, though.
I love it.
And what weight were you, Brett?
I was 152, but I remember I had a wrestle off and I lost in like quadruple overtime, whatever it was. So I bumped up most of the year at 160 as like a true 152 pounder. So that was tough. And I think, yeah, I might have like won one match at divisionals, but didn't make it to sectional. So it was, pretty disappointing, especially, coming off middle school and, winning easy matches and whatnot. And when you get to high school, you're like, oh man, how am I ever going to do this when guys are just, pinning me?
I mean, but you know what I love about that, Brett, is you look at a guy like Brett Perry, 8 and 19 or whatever, and Jacob Ferreira was a 500 wrestler as a freshman, and these guys both by their senior years are New York State finalists, and they both are at Division I programs. Brett ended up being an NCAA qualifier, and Jacob at NC State is in, a great room. You think about it, it's like kids could do it. You don't have to be PJ Duke to be successful, right? And I love how great PJ is. He's unbelievable, but, you could develop a little bit later. It doesn't have to be like 8th and 9th. You look at a kid like Vinny Sasso, Brett, that's a kid on our team. He was a freshman this year, and he has a ton of talent. His older brothers wrestled for a long time. You might even remember some of his brothers, but been in the program for a long time, but he's not fully committed. He could be, but he went like 17 and 14 this past year, 17 and 13 as a freshman at 160,
Wow.
just on raw talent and athleticism. And you look at a kid like him, and he did better than you and Jacob Ferreira as freshmen, right? And both you guys ended up being killers. So really that goes to show me that, if you commit, if you want it bad enough, you could get there. You could start a little bit later. You could be a little bit later to the game. And it works. And I love that. And I hope that kids listen to this, because I knew that you weren't obviously what you were your junior and senior year when you were a freshman, but I didn't remember that you had a losing record. So I think that's like, that's really important. And it's important for the young guys to understand, So sophomore year comes after a year of training all off season. How's that go for you?
It went much better. I wrestled 170, and I probably weighed like 170, 171. I didn't cut any weight, which was awesome. And I think I was like 26 and like 14 or 16, something like that. Much better. I had some good wins. And at sectionals, let's see. I remember at divisionals, I lost to like Steve Sabella from Yorktown. I might have lost to another guy, but at sectionals I took 5th. I wrestled a lot of pretty tough kids. I can't remember his first name, but Erickson from Brewster. We always had some tough matches. Then I wrestled a guy from New Rochelle, but yeah, I ended up taking 5th, and that's when I started to understand that I'm beating seniors and juniors, and sometimes beating them up. That I actually have something here, so I gotta further commit than what I did previously.
Well, Coach Sabellis, it's like what Coach Sabellis says a lot, and he's talked about in interviews before. I feel like it's a bit of a snowball effect, right? Once you start getting a little bit of success, you start to believe in yourself a little more, because that's a big difference. 8 and 19 to 24 and 12 or whatever. I might have got that wrong, but something around that, and 5th in the section at a weight class like that as a sophomore. Do you think because you started picking up wins like that and stuff, you did start to get a little bit more confident? Like, okay, I could carry on from here.
Absolutely. I mean, even as a 10th grader, wrestling a senior seems so intimidating, but once you start beating them and understanding that, if you work hard and just tire them out and, kind of do the things that you've learned, especially from you and Deagle, that you could beat these guys. And once you get, I'd say like that first win, it's all, it's so much easier from there.
Yeah, I would agree. Coach, what do you think about that? Like that snowball effect? I think it's pretty interesting how really, I mean, Brett's skill changed, right? Because he was a year-round wrestler, but I also believe it had a lot to do with, okay, like he was saying before, once you beat that guy, you're like, okay, I could keep beating these guys. I could do that. Like, isn't it crazy, Coach, how mental wrestling is? Like, you could just literally make a switch in your brain and things change.
Well, I was thinking earlier, it's all attitude, and Brett always had a great attitude, always was confident. And wrestling, winning is contagious, just like losing. Losing is contagious, It seems to repeat itself. So if you start to lose a couple matches, you start getting into the tank a little bit, then it's going to keep on repeating. You got to break that cycle and start winning.
Would you guys both say, I would say a lot of things are contagious, right? Because when you think about it, like when we're at work, Coach, and Brett now, actually, Brett's a grown man out there working.
He's actually got a real legit job.
Yeah, I'm over here throwing dodgeballs at kids, and he's over there making sure we don't like the nuclear things blow up.
I'm making tennis ball launchers.
Yeah, you're making cool. Well, you do real work too, though. But I'm playing like freeze dance. But anyway, you see it at Coach Sabella, especially with teachers, or maybe not in Brett's profession as much, but you see it with like a teacher. They'll complain, and then they're complaining some more, and then they're complaining some more, and then another teacher walks in, and then they complain together, and they kind of feed off each other, and it's like, what's going on? But it's like that same saying, like, you surround yourself with the right type of people, you know, now we're motivated together. Now we want to win together, right? And you see that at the club a lot. I feel like a lot of higher level guys are together, and it kind of works together. Brett, what would you say, you know, about, you know, maybe, you know, once you get into a routine and you're around the right people and you start thinking the right way, does it start to, like Coach Sabella said, snowball?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, you know, even in John Jay, I had Dale White, I had Luke Manassi, and I had my, you know, my brother coaching too. So being around guys that were better than me and would beat me up in the room, it definitely motivated me. And when they would have a good attitude, like, you know, a coach coming into a room having a good attitude, it automatically picks you up. And I'm sure as athletes and coaches, we all know when the coach has a bad attitude, you could read it on the kids' faces that it just transfers. So it's so important, I think, as a coach or even just as a teammate to go in and just have that great attitude. And at least, even if you got to fake it sometimes, it helps.
100%. I mean, I think Brett and Coach Sabella, I would like you to jump in this because you actually have the most coaching experience, because you're only like a year older than me, but you've been doing this for a long time. But you have the most coaching experience. But I honestly, and I'm not just saying this, Brett, and you're already doing a fantastic job. You're better than 99% of coaches already. But I think he's wiser than his age, if that makes sense. Like he's past, a lot of coaches would not understand what he just said. You know, they come in with those negative. Like there's times when I'm sitting in my car before I walk into Empire or Greeley, and I'm dead tired, and I'm not in the mood. And I have to fake it. Right? I have to go in there and I have to give the right energy, and I've done that more times than probably the opposite, right? You know, you work a long day, you know, you're tired, you know, you have other stresses as an adult that a kid doesn't have maybe, and you walk into that room and it's just different. But, you know, they feed off what you do. They feed off your energy, right? So you come in there, you laugh, you make a joke, and then when it's time to go, you lay the hammer down with them. And Brett saying that as a second-year coach, you know, obviously with a great pedigree, but still a second-year coach, that's you know, I think impressive, and I'm excited to see where your coaching goes. Coach, what do you say about that? Do you think that's a real thing?
Well, when you told me we were interviewing Brett, you know, the other day, and I said to myself, I'm like, that's almost interviewing another coach.
Yeah,
you know, and more so than the kids that we've been interviewing, where they're in the game, they're doing the thing. Brett's finished up, and I had a couple conversations with him at the Eagles, and I'm like, wow, this guy's legit. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing. He's in it for the right reasons, and he's got a real full-time gig other than, you know, coaching and giving back.
Brett is the first young coach that's come back around me, at least, and others have done great. Like Alex is great. Alex's technique is top notch.
He's great.
You know, he's good, and he coaches the kids well, and he doesn't care if they're good or bad or whatever. This is no disrespect to him. Khalid's jumped up another level. He's getting a lot better. But something about Brett's approach, I think the maturity of it, you know, is different. You know, it's just different. Like Alex is going to be great, but Alex is still 21, 22, and he reminds me sometimes of a 21, 22-year-old. Like he'll forget things, and like I did when I was 21, 22. But now that, you know, Brett, how old are you, 24?
Yeah, he's my age too.
Oh, so he's your age. So it's not much of a but you just have that, you have a coaching style. I think me and you are kind of similar in that, where, you know, I graduated and I really cared about it. So like I was very into it, because when I was coaching you, I was pretty similar to your age right now, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Looking back, I feel like when I was in high school, I always thought you were so much older than me. I don't know why, but it's weird now that I'm like where you were, that I feel, well, hopefully I feel young.
I was probably creeping around. I was probably complaining about like my knees and stuff back then, like a wuss. And you're probably like, man, this guy is old. This guy is.
No, I feel it now. Being out of college a couple of years.
Yeah, and then it's another wave hits you at 30. Trust me, I've definitely slowed down again a little bit, but I'm making a comeback. I've been doing push-ups. I'm coming back.
Wait till you're 47.
47. You don't look a day past 46 and a half.
That's true. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? But, you know, we get a little bit more into your coaching a little bit later, Brett, because I am very impressed with your coaching. I think you have, you know, obviously your real life, you know, the difference between obviously guys like me, you, and DeBellis and John is we're building our life outside of wrestling, but we have a place in wrestling, which
Right.
I like the best because, you know, I like to kind of mix it up. It doesn't have to be wrestling 24/7, but I
Right.
think you're going to have a long coaching career with your, you know, work career. But so let's jump into junior year, because that's when you really started to
Right.
really hit the scene. What happened that year? What was the differences that helped you kind of make that jump? Any big wins? Like, how was your junior year kind of?
So my junior year, I can't remember, the first couple matches or any specific matches, but I just remember being way more confident. And, I think the confidence was the biggest thing. And being at John's for maybe that was like 2 full years now and wrestling with some higher level guys. And I think, the confidence came from actually taking down some better guys in the room. I think, I might have taken you down once or twice. Maybe you let me, I can't remember exactly, but
I definitely
even
didn't
just, yeah, even just like wrestling with you and some of those other guys in the room helped build my confidence. So I think, I can't remember any specific matches, but I just remember going out and being like, okay, I'm going to pin this guy. Not to sound cocky, but you kind of know when you're on another level than someone else.
Of course.
So that was my mentality most of the time. And I think the first real challenge was at Eastern States. I think I took fifth my junior year. So there were some really good guys. Dan McDevitt, he was from Wontag, and there's Troy Seymour, some guys. And that was actually a wake-up call, too, because I got beat up a couple of those matches. But, that's how it goes.
But you know what's crazy, and think about this, is 9 and 18 or whatever freshman year, 2 years later, you're fifth in Eastern States, which I think is tougher than the state tournament. So, like, that's a monumental jump. And, like Coach DeBella said, Brett always had the right attitude. Like, he was a hard worker, man. Like, at that time, I'm trying to think who was around at that time, but I think Brett was the first real guy that I was working with in the room, at least, that I was like, holy shit, like, this guy is here to work. This guy wants to get better. This guy's going to put, and after Brett came like the Youssefs a little later, and we joked with Youssef a little bit. Like, Youssef got really good, but he took 30 minutes to get on the mat because of his stretching routine. So they were different. They were different. Youssef obviously developed into a freak of nature, but they were different. But Alex Malikian came a little bit after. Alex Malikian,
I wrestled with him a lot too.
Alex was a Brett. They were very similar. They both worked their tails off. And then a couple years after that, that's when like the Jacob Ferreira came, and those guys are kind of, to me, are in the same like line of like, wasn't given to them, wasn't natural for them. They worked their tails off and they got it, and then they kept progressing. Who was, out of curiosity, other than me, because I know me and you wrestled a lot, who was your like go-to workout partner around junior year? Do you remember?
I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I know I wrestled with Alex Malikian and Johnny Garcia.
Probably Johnny a lot, yeah.
I think, who was older than me? I can't remember who was a year older, but there had to be someone else too.
DiNardo was younger than you, right?
Yeah, he was younger.
DiNardo. Adam was younger than you.
He was younger.
Berkowitz probably.
Was he? But he was 2 years older than me.
That was 10th grade, and you probably didn't mess with him too much. I wonder who was that senior class. I'm not sure. Mastro maybe? Or was it your year?
Mastro was smaller though.
I still wrestled with him a little bit, but yeah, some of those guys. Definitely Garcia, Johnny, and Alex a lot.
Was Johnny your grade?
I think he was. He might actually be a year younger, but we always competed pretty hard.
I think he was a year younger because what's crazy, Coach? Like I said, all these guys like kind of fall into this like group together, because in my head, I remember Brett's like senior year, and I feel like I wrestled with him every practice. Yeah. But then I remember Adam's senior year and Johnny Garcia's senior year and other guys senior, and I feel like I wrestled with them every practice. How could I have done that? You know what I mean? I feel it's like everything is just, it's like all one sometimes. It's very confusing. But to go back on what Brett said, not to like toot my own horn, I was a young college guy pretty much. These guys were high school kids. I was a grown man. Brett was the first guy. I don't think like Burko and those guys were scoring on me. Brett was the first guy to really, like, I was like, holy cow, I have to wrestle a high school kid tough. Like this kid, is coming for me. And then after that, Youssef would score and other guys would get scores here and there. But like, the thing that I noticed about Brett back then, though, even though you weren't maybe where you were going to be yet, you didn't care. Like you had the confidence. You wanted to wrestle. You were very respectful, a great kid, but you were always going for it. You never held back, which I appreciate. What do you think that was? Do you think that was eventually, like you said, the confidence and the snowballing of winning, or do you think that was just your mindset and you're a grinding type guy and you're like, all right, I'm gonna work hard for this?
Yeah, I think that was just my mindset, kind of like we talked about before. I was never like naturally just gifted at wrestling. So from losing a lot of matches, I knew that I had to wrestle basically as hard as I could the whole time. So as I started, getting more skill and getting more confident, that stuck with me. And I knew if I didn't try 100% on you, you would absolutely destroy me. So I had to give everything I got just to maybe get to your leg and probably still not score. I remember being on a single on you so many times, and your single leg defense, I mean, you probably weren't even heavier than me, but you had the heaviest leg.
That's pretty much all I got left. I got heavy hips. Everything else doesn't really work too well anymore. But no, but Brett I remember like being dead tired. And then, like I said, after that, Youssef, and then, Adam got good and Graham Cuomo got good. And these guys, and then recently, obviously I'm a little bit older, but guys like AJ were pushing me pretty hard. And I'm like, holy cow.
Right.
It's so funny, coach, because I'm watching Brett wrestle with the guys, right? And I'm watching him wrestle Matt Kelly and these guys, and he's just mopping the floor with them. And I'm like, that was kind of me 10 years ago. Like, I'm not that guy. Now I'm in there like, I'll beat Matt Kelly 1 takedown to none or something. And it's just a war. It's a war. And Brett's like throwing him around like a rag doll. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Brett, you're a beast. But, I love it. And he's so good with the kids, and it's great. I kind of cut you off, though. 5th at Eastern State your junior year. We didn't kind of go past there. So how'd the rest of the season go?
Good. I think so. That year, I ended up winning divisionals and winning sectionals. I remember looking at do you remember the section? I think it might have been Lowhout in one of those Section 1 blogs. And there's a kid from Mamaroneck, and they're like, this kid, Duran's going to beat Brett. So I remember being so pissed. I think when I wrestled him at divisionals, I might have tech pinned him or something like that. Because I had a chip on my shoulder now, because people are like, oh, this kid from Mamaroneck. And I, being up in Dutchess County, we never wrestled those guys. So I only saw him at divisionals.
You were on another level. And you know what I love about Brett, coach? And you can't really tell when you're talking to him and things like this, but Brett does get chippy, right? Brett, I don't want to use the word emotional, because he's not emotional. That's the wrong word. But there's a fire there. I've seen him have arguments with the kid at practice, never for the wrong reason either. It's right. Just if he feels like something's not right, he's going to tell you, and he's going to tell that kid. And if he doesn't think the kid's work, so I could see you reading that blog. I could just picture in my head and you being like, this son of a, I'm going to get him. I'm going to show him what's up. Who did you wrestle your junior year in the section finals? I remember your senior year.
Yeah. What was his name it was Adam Hodling or something. Oh, where was he from? He had the shaved head. He also had the blonde hair that one year.
Was he the kid from Sleepy Hollow?
Oh, Sleepy Hollow. Yeah.
That crazy kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid was crazy.
He was a little crazy.
Crazy. A lot of crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember him.
No, he was a section finalist. He came to the club a little bit. Not as much as Brett, obviously, but I think he did some crazy stuff at some tournaments. He was a little bit out there,
Yeah, and that was the first time I wrestled him too in the section final. So
did you beat him up?
I think I beat him 6-2, but I had him in a bar the whole for 45 seconds or a minute. I couldn't finish it. He was just a tough kid that I couldn't score too much, and it was one of those things where it was my first section final, so I probably wrestled way more reserved and a little tighter than normal.
Yeah. Who was Jay your year or year younger?
He was a year younger. So I think he took 5th or 3rd maybe that year.
And then he won the next year with you when you're senior.
Yeah, because Dale White also won his senior year and my junior year. So we had 2 winners from Jay.
Were you guys no, there was Pat in the past, but were you guys Coach Jamie's first section champs?
No, because Coach Jamie coached oh, it's weird. I actually call him Coach Weaver. Yeah, Weaver coached Chris and Joey.
Oh, duh. Yeah, I forgot he coached those guys. You know what's crazy, Coach Sabellis, is you look at John Jay, and they have a history of being club guys, and Weaver does a great job with them too. But it's it kind of ended this year with Tyler, because that was the last connection of that, I feel like. But you had the Perrys, and then you had Whites, and then you had the Albuses, these brother groups that went in there, all successful. Did you guys all come up together in youth or not really?
We were kind of all separated, honestly. So, Chris and Joey were before me, then it was me, and Dale was a little before me, and then Jay was a little after me, but I didn't really wrestle much youth, so I didn't have me and Dale and some of those other guys didn't have like, I guess, that closeness of coming up from youth, but that's probably just because I wasn't a big fan of wrestling when I was younger.
Which is insane. You turned out to be this guy.
It's funny. I actually hated wrestling when I was younger. Like, absolutely hated it.
I think we've talked about this, and I think Coach Carano has had the same conversation with me about Will, which I find funny because you helped Will out a lot, and Will is a great kid and he's a good wrestler.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know what's crazy, and I hope Will listens and doesn't listen to this because I forgot about him a little bit for a second. Because in my head the other day, you know, we're going through a little bit of rebuilding at the club, and that happens,
Right.
you know, and COVID's not helping anybody.
Absolutely.
But I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, who's the good guys in the club right now? You know, and I was like, Chris Perry's tough, PJ obviously, and you know, Matty Lopes is tough. And I'm starting to think of kids that are successful. And then I was thinking the other day, I'm like, Will Carano's still in high school.
Yeah.
Like,
He's a junior.
He's
He'll be
a
a
senior
senior.
now. But
Yeah.
he has a win over like this kid Kropman who won states at 160, big schools. Like he's in that group where if he
Definitely.
mentally steps up, he's a state champ. You know what I mean? So we have, you know, we think we lost Quincy and Tyler and AJ. It's like we don't have any heavy hitters anymore. We kind of do. You know, it's just that, you know, like I said, COVID and injuries and these things aren't really the most helpful things in the world. But I kind of forgot about Will for a second there. So
yeah, he was hurt too for a couple months. I think he hurt his
he's
ankle.
finally getting back to it.
I've seen him back a couple times.
Yeah, I think he's ready to go. I think he's going to be ready to go. But so how is senior year states?
So
junior year. Sorry.
Oh, junior year? Okay. So let's see. I remember my first two matches. I think I won them both in overtime. Or like one of them was I think I won them both in overtime, and they were both 1-point matches. I remember being probably the most nervous I've ever been in my entire life because, you know, the first time you walk out there. Yeah, Dale wrestled before me, so, you know, Coach Weaver and my brother Chris were with him. And I remember being in the tunnel by myself before my match and, you know, kind of freaking out. But I won my first two matches, so that brought me to the second day. And then the second day, I was in the semis, and I wrestled who did I wrestle? I think the guy who ended up winning it, this guy Torbino he was somewhere in Long Island. He ended up wrestling at Ithaca, but he kind of tore me to shreds.
Yeah.
So then I think I lost another match, and then I ended up taking fifth that year.
That's great.
Yeah.
Coach, look at
So
those.
you went 3-2.
Look at those jumps, though, Coach. 9-18 to fifth in the section, big deal. Fifth in the section to fifth in the state,
Fifth in the state.
big deal. You know, those
And
are
fifth in Easterns.
And fifth in Easterns. Those are huge jumps. What do you attribute that jump to? Was it still the club wrestling, or was it you know having your dad who was obviously very helpful and your brothers, or was it still mindset? You think or a little bit of everything, kind of? That's a big jump.
Right. I think it was a little bit of everything. So my junior year, I wrestled 170 again and actually cut some weight. So I felt like, you know, I was a little stronger and kind of grew into my own body.
Yeah.
But, you know, at home I had my dad and my brother. So, you know, sometimes I could be a mental case. So my dad always helped me with that, you know, keep me calm and keep me confident. And then, you know, at John Jay, I wrestled probably with Dale and then also Chris. I mean, I haven't really shouted out Chris yet, but he worked with me probably every day wrestling. A little side story here. I remember we were wrestling one day. He like faked a shot on me. I didn't even move because he was so much better than me. And he ended up taking a shot and hitting his head on my knee and like splitting his head open. So he likes to remind me of that one.
Chris is the man. Chris is a great guy. And, you know, he was obviously it's his brother. So obviously he still loves him, you know, but like they're brothers.
Yeah.
He would text me sometimes, Chris, when Brett was heading up to the club and tell me things that Brett was working on in the room, you know, and what he was struggling with when they were wrestling. And he was but he wasn't, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but he wasn't too overbearing either. No. It wasn't like he was following him to the club and yelling at him and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like he was letting Brett kind of be Brett, but he was, you know, supportive at the same time. I think he had the right idea, you know. Am I accurate on that?
Yeah, definitely. He like I haven't said it yet, but he never yelled at me or was like super hard on me because I was always hard on myself. Mm-hmm. So Chris and, you know, my dad and Coach Weaver were always really supportive and kind of like helped me if I was ever in a dark place to get out of that. And, you know, and then I didn't finish, but also, you know, coming down to the club and we wrestled all the time. I mean, I can't. There was countless times where I'd be like, "Yo, Anthony, can you wrestle with me?" And you'd have to coach an entire room of people, and then you'd be going live with me, yelling out when to stop and start, and people asking me questions. But I kind of remember taking you for myself a little bit.
Yeah, he does that all the time at Greeley too. It's hilarious.
That's what it is. We
But
got
the competition at Greeley isn't as tough as the competition at the room.
No, we had to take care of the guys that care, though, And I'm not saying the other kids don't care, but a guy like Brett doesn't always walk in the door when he wants it that bad. You got to take him. You got to help those kids. Those are the kids that really deserve it, I feel like. And you could say you get what you deserve, but to me, you get what you deserve. That's right. Like you come in there and you're fired up and you're ready to go. I'm going to do everything I can to help you. What was I going to say? I was going to tell you something, but I totally spaced. Oh, your dad, though. Tell me if this is true, Coach Sabalas. I feel like Mr. Perry is one of the most, and I know your dad well enough, but I don't know him personally, really. I know him only in wrestling, really. He just seems like the most calming force. Like,
yeah, he's a great man.
He's a great guy, but like I always feel like good. Like when I'm around him, he's like, he always makes you feel comfortable. And I could see that being a good, and you said it, like he talks, you could get in your own head a little bit. How is that relationship though? Like, what did he like? Sometimes would he like say, Brett, you're doing really well. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't think about like, what was kind of the conversations because I like hearing about good father-son relationships in wrestling.
Right. So, I can't remember specific words he would say, but it was always more of like a supportive thing. And that was awesome. Cause whenever I lost a match, he would never come down on me. Yeah. Right? He would never say like, "Whoa, you should have done this," or "You should have done that." He was always supportive, tell me he loves me, and kind of like lift me up, which is what, certain kids need different things. And since I was always hard on myself and put myself in a darker place when I lost, I needed someone to kind of bring me out of that and maybe forget about wrestling or, help me fix what I did. So he has this way of, just talking to you. And honestly, anyone who has ever been on my teams, they'll always come up to me like, "Man, your dad just like knows how to make you calm down or knows how to make you feel confident and talk." So I think, he's coached for so many years and he has that way to just make you relax and kind of take focus of what's important.
I feel like you need that. I feel like to me, that is just as important as high level technique,
Absolutely.
Because, and we could get into it a little deeper once we finish your high school career here, but like to me, and I say it almost in every interview, wrestling eventually is going to end. Right. And the things that, Brett's dad was teaching him, and the compassion and the caring and the stuff like that. I think that's going to carry way past wrestling. I think those lessons are really important. A single leg, you're not going to hit a single leg when you're 55 years old. I don't think, unless you're up to some crazy stuff. But I think that's good. I love hearing stuff like that. I love like Dale Robbins' relationship with his boys. Like, he would go to bat for them a little bit. Maybe he would jump on the mat a little bit too much sometimes. I'm not, whatever. Like you could think that, you could not think that. But I would always see when, Brady or Dennis would take a loss or it was a tough match, Dale wouldn't scream in their face. He'd give him a hug, give him a kiss on the head or something like that. And it was off to the next one, and I think, I feel like that as a dad. I know Luke is only actually a year old tomorrow, but today was his first birthday. Crazy, right? But like, I want him to wrestle. I want him to be really good. And DeBellis said the other day, we'll see, and we will see. I told DeBellis that he has to actually hold me accountable to not be that guy, but I'd rather be dad. My thing would be, and this is probably, I would love to ask your dad about this, but your dad would probably like, hey, work your hardest, do everything you can, but if you do that and you lose, I still love you. It's fine, and I think that's great that your dad was like that, and he's a great man.
Yeah, it took a lot of pressure.
It is a different feeling when it's your kid, though.
Oh, I believe that.
But you get used to it, though, too. You'll get used to it. It is different the first time.
Well, Coach, even when at youth practice, I have a 7-year-old nephew, Brett. He was 6 last year at youth. Yeah. It's just practice.
He's a beast, baby.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know about that. We'll make him a beast. He's not there yet. He was
He's awesome.
My dad squeezed his ear today, and he started to cry, so that wasn't good. So we got to toughen him up a little bit. But he's a good boy, and he's so good with Luca. He's, obviously I love him. He's my nephew. I'm very close with my whole family. But when he was like getting beat up a little bit in youth last year, I wasn't like, oh, you got to win. I almost wanted to be like, get off him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like more the opposite. It's like, why are you smashing his face in the mat? So it'll be interesting. Like this guy, see, Jake's got a face though that you could smash off a mat. But
that's probably the harder part. It's probably harder to be a parent, honestly, watching your kid wrestle.
David Schreiber says that to us all the time, and he was joking around with Coach DeBella saying, like, now you're seeing it, aren't you? You're seeing it. So I could believe that because me as a coach is harder than being an athlete.
Man, it's I get you get so invested, and like when a kid loses, you feel the loss. So I know why Deagle gets emotional sometimes.
I know why Deagle gets emotional sometimes. I don't know why Deagle breaks glass with his face, but I know why he gets emotional sometimes. But I know Deagle's the best, and he has. And the thing is, Deagle's an emotional type person. He won't say that outwardly, but he cares deeply, and it shows
it. I think he cares so much.
He cares so much. Yeah, he really does. So anyway, we got a little off topic there. Senior year's your year, pretty much.
Yeah.
Having a great year. I remember, senior year getting in the club with you and Coach Brett talking about single leg defense. Brett always had great single leg defense, and he was so flexible. And by his senior year, I was getting so annoyed because not annoyed. I was glad that he was doing better, right? But I would have a single leg up, and I would have to fight him to the death to take it down because he'd straighten his leg all the way out. And I'm like, oh my God, how is he still up? And like, tough son of a gun. And Graham Cuomo was very similar to that a couple years later with that style. But so tell us a little bit about your senior year.
Yeah, so senior year, it's kind of the same thing. Wrestled a whole year, another year at Empire. Well, it was Iowa style back then.
Yeah.
Wrestled with you, same thing with Chris. And I think, senior year, I was super confident. And going through the year, I think I wrestled Johnny Garcia in one tournament. I think I ended up beating him by a point. So that was like one of my tougher matches.
Yeah.
And then the next, challenge was actually Eastern States. That year I took third. The kid actually lost to in the state finals. I lost to him in the quarterfinals at Easterns, and then I beat him for third place. So I got my revenge. And then, going into the state tournament, win divisional is easy, win sectional is easy. I think I beat a kid from Suffern.
I remember that. Yeah.
I beat him 10-2, something like that.
That kid was okay. I mean, that kid was good. I think he won sectionals the next year and was all state the next year.
Yeah, he did. But I remember going into that match. It was at Clarkstown South, and I was just super confident. And
yeah, you were way better.
I was probably a little cocky because I remember he actually blast doubled me because I was getting frustrated. And I was like, oh, shit, now I got to go even harder.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we got to states, and I was the 1 seed. Senior year. I think I wrestled Brock against you guys. You guys –
bumped him. No, you bumped up.
I bumped up.
No, what happened – I remember that because we were like – you guys didn't have a very big team at the time.
No.
You guys had like maybe 8 or 9 guys, I think.
Yeah, we had a small team.
You forfeited a lot.
Yeah, but they were
going to forfeit to you and then get Brock a forfeit at the upper weight. And you guys came out and double forfeited 70, I think.
82.
Or it was 82 and wrestled
95.
Brock. And I'll tell you what, that confused the hell out of me. Remember, Coach? I'm like, wait a second. They're going to do this?
I think I might have called it beforehand, too. I'm like, they'll probably bump Brett up to wrestle Brock.
Yeah, we ended up losing that duel by a point.
And didn't you tech him, Brett?
Yeah, I think I cradled him. It was tough, but I was just, technically better.
Well, he wrestled Grella.
Yeah.
Andrew Grella the match before. And I think Brock was a sophomore.
Junior.
Oh, he was a junior? Okay.
Yeah, Brock took second in the section that year at the weight above Brett.
He wrestled Grella.
Yeah, in the finals.
He wrestled Grella.
And the division finals, too.
He got majored by Grella. Not to talk about Brock, but we talked about Brock a little bit in Yusuf's interview, too. I think Brock, was great with his work ethic. He was a tough son of a gun. It just didn't come easy to him, so he just needed more reps because his skill was just choppy. He was just choppy out there. But he got Grella so frustrated in the section finals that Grella's dad was in our corner, who I always had a pretty good relationship with, was like near our corner. Remember yelling and saying stuff, and I turned around and said something to him, like, get out of our corner. Like, what are you doing here? And he got like a whole chippy with me. I was like, okay, we're going to do this. Okay, that's fine.
I think it's the Beacon connection.
Yeah, we don't like them. But, like, I
know his dad's a good guy.
Yeah.
His dad's great.
I don't mean I don't like Mr. Grella. I mean, I don't like him. But I
remember that match because it was kind of chippy. I think it was chippy both ways. It was just
Brock was super chippy, and I kind of loved that. Brock had no chance to win that match, really. He had a puncher's chance because he was just tough. And similar with Yusuf was closer. Brock made big jumps his senior year, and Yusuf was really good. But his junior year, Brock wasn't there yet. Senior year, Brock was an all-state copper guy. He could have been a state champion in a different weight class. Like, he was good. He was ready to go. Junior year, he wasn't there yet. And I just love the fact that he was frustrating Grella still. I love the fact that he wouldn't take a back seat to him. I love the fact that he would get taken down
And then
he
smile.
right back up and he was getting doubled from space and he just didn't care. He got up and was like, I'm coming back after you. And like would run right back after you again. And I loved it because I think he knew that he wasn't going to win that match, but he was like, I'm gonna throw the sink at you and I don't give a crap. Like, and
it's all about the effort. And even when you know you're going to lose, you still got to give it everything.
Yeah, I think I don't know whose interview it was, but we talked about you and Grell like working out a little bit together.
Yeah.
I don't know whose interview, but you could spill a little tea. But I feel like you got the better of him if I'm correct on that.
I honestly can't remember. He was a weight class up, and I know we trained a little at John's together, but then also a couple of section practices at John Jay. So I can't say that I took him down more times or not because I honestly can't remember. But we had some great scraps.
Do you know that
he was a great athlete?
He
ended up going to West Point. Did he wrestle there?
He did. I think he had a lot of back injuries.
I think that was it, and that kind of ended it for him.
Yeah, he made it through West Point though.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think he did.
Great. That's great.
He's a good kid. He's a good kid.
Oh, you know what? We went and watched him wrestle one time. Yeah. I took the team down to West Point.
You went. I didn't go.
Yeah. And he signed a poster.
I saw him at one of like the tournaments when I was a freshman, and I think basically his whole college career, his back was hurt, so he couldn't really compete anymore.
He was a super talent though, and
he was tough to wrestle.
I'm not even trying to spill the guy. I don't know what happened with him and John, but there was some sort of falling out there with the club, and he left.
It was more with Berkowitz.
Oh, they had a fight, right? Didn't he punch Berkowitz or something?
I think so. I think Berkowitz was wrestling with him. I don't know exactly what happened if someone was, choking a little. You know how it kind of gets in the room. So
yeah,
I think tempers flared, and he might have ended up punching him, but I can't remember exactly what happened.
I think he did. I think he did because I remember John. Now that I totally forgot about that until you brought that up. But then I remember John busting Berkowitz's chops because saying like, "Oh, somebody punched you in the face and you just took it." Like like saying like you just took it, crazy. But that was the Wild Wild West a little bit back then. But
it was fun though. I mean, the thing is, when you're wrestling, it's better to get a little angry and maybe throw a punch than take a beating. So I guess that's maybe more my college mentality is, hey, if you're getting beat up, at least give 100% effort. I'd rather you throw a punch than just sit there with your head on the mat. So.
Yeah, I never in high school at the club we would get in scraps when I was in high school, but never fist thrown. And when I was in college, fists were thrown.
Oh yeah, so I like it. It's fun watching that because it means that both guys care, and usually after the fact, a couple of days later, maybe a couple hours later, you're still friends. And
yeah, I don't know if you remember. Your brother will remember this kid, DeBellis. You know him, Bowman, John Bonilla Bowman. He was tough. He was a 2-time All-State guy. He was the crazy guy that was at the snowstorm meeting and he was yelling at the meeting. You know what I'm talking about? I cracked him one day in practice so bad. Oh my God. And then like an hour later, he texted me with a smiley face and was like, I love you. Or like just being funny. I'm like, yeah, you too, you psychopath. Like, get away from me. But like it got flared. Like, it got wild. We were in the Jets Dome. That's when they had the presidential debates at Hofstra. So we had to go in the dome to practice. We weren't allowed in that building. I guess they were doing like, whatever. So practice was over and I was doing tire flips with Acardino, this kid on the team. And me and Johnny had just did takedowns, and that year I moved up a couple weights. So he beat me in a wrestle off, and we both were 157 pounders by a point. But now I was like 184, but I was really like 180 pounds. But he was still 57, and I beat the crap out of him. I took him down like 10 times to none, and he kept coming back like one more. I took him down, one more, took him down. I'm like, Johnny, I'm done. So he comes storming back in the room. I'm flipping tires with Acardino because I'm an older kid on the team. I'm not going to tell Acardino no. Like, he wanted to do some extra work. So I'm like, all right, I'll do extra work with you. He said, you have energy to do this, and put his head into my head, and I cracked him. Just dropped his ass.
That's awesome.
And now he's been kind of probably going off the rails ever since. But side story. Sorry about that. But yeah, so Grella.
This is turning into The View.
Yeah,
I know.
Love it.
What's going on here?
I don't care. But Grella was out. He took a year off, right, Brad? And he stayed with John. Like, he just
in high school, I can't remember what happened exactly, but in high school he didn't wrestle a year. Then I think he trained. I can't remember if he trained at John's or at Olympic, wherever he trained. But yeah, I think he got a lot better. He got really good that year. It was kind of like It's funny because me and Andrew, we followed like the same path.
Yeah.
You know, we both came from families with brothers who were really good wrestlers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we both, you know, our freshman year, I don't, you know, he might have done better than me, but we both probably underperformed and progressed together. And to bring it full circle, senior year, we both were in the state finals.
Right.
And, you know, after we both won our semis matches, because actually, you know, we were pretty close. We trained together a lot. And, you know, being a 82 and the 95 pounder, you know, we were close. So we went back up to the hotel and we were hanging out and just, you know, eating some food. And we're like, damn, I can't believe we're in the state finals. So it was like a pretty cool moment that, you know, after looking back, being 9 and 18, to sitting in a hotel room a couple hours before the state finals, hanging out with Andrew.
And like you said, he wasn't a superstar his freshman year. So like
Right.
to be in that situation is pretty cool. Who did he lose to his senior year? I don't remember. Was it Reggie Williams?
Yeah, he lost to Reggie. He did.
I remember that kid was good back then. But you know what's funny, Coach, that Brett brought back, and I totally forgot until he said it, is you were saying like your senior year you would go up to Section 1 practices and wrestle with Grella. Do you know I went to like 3 or 4 of those practices just for Brett and wrestled with Brett?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, but I remember being like bitter, not at Brett. Like I would do anything for Brett at that point. But like
Right.
that was like one of my 3rd or 4th year at Greeley, and we had Scotty at states. So in my young mind, I thought we were supposed to have a state qualifier every year. Like I was
Should.
yeah, now we should, especially with all the resources we have. But at that point, I'm like, there's no reason we shouldn't have somebody here. So I remember being annoyed that all these other like Section 1 coaches that are good people, but they, you know, whatever, they're not doing maybe what I'm doing. So I'm just like, these little shits have, you know, their guys here, and I'm here as a guest.
They're all sitting in the corner talking.
Huh? Yeah,
They're all off to the
talking.
side.
I'm over here getting clubbed in the head by Brett Perry, and I have no Greeley guys here. You know?
I always appreciated it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know you did. I know, and you know, not to. I'm sure Brett was like this with a lot of his coaches, but I would occasionally get texts in college when Brett was in college saying nice things and being thankful and being a good guy. And you know, it's my job, but Brett was always one of those guys that's worth helping because, you know, to me, I'll help anybody, but if you feel like they appreciate it, it does make it that much sweeter, right? You feel a little bit more. All right, like this kid cares what I'm doing, so I'm going to do it for him. I'm going to keep going, and I appreciate that. So senior year, you lose in the state finals.
Yep.
Talk us through that match a little bit and talk us about your the aftermath, maybe, you know, because I give you space. You know, I remember sitting with John and like the VIP things and like really trying to like cheer it on and whatever. But I never really talked about you, like those moments after, like how do you handle it? What went through your mind? You know, how was all of that?
Yeah. So I guess I'll go through the match first.
Yeah.
So I wrestled kid from Salem, North Salem, whatever, Salem, Sachem East.
Yeah.
Can't remember. I wrestled him in the finals, and I think, you know, it was 0-0, and then he picked down, he got an escape, and it was a scrappy match, right? Like he had a single leg on me. I was in my shin wizard, my split, you know, almost got taken down.
Yeah.
And I had a single on him, kind of almost got a takedown. So it was scrappy, right? But not a lot of points scored.
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget this moment. I think we're still in the second period, and it, you know, he blows the whistle. He's up 1-0, and instead of staying in my stance, I'd reach. He just lowers and blast doubles me, and that's the points where he won. So then, you know, I get out third period, and I lose 3-2. So after that match, I remember, you know, going back in the tunnel. And once you go, you know, back in that back left, right where all the tables are, right in that corner where we go every year.
Yep.
I was crying, laying on the ground. I'm not laying, sitting on the ground. I think I ripped like my shoes off or something like that. And then Chris came over, and I think I was like crying. I was like, sorry, I failed. I let you down. And he gave me a hug, like put my head in his chest and said, no, man, I'm proud of you. Like you've done all these great things. So he kind of, another time where he came in clutch, kind of talking me off the ledge and just gave me support. He didn't say, oh, you should have done this, or yelled at me. He just, you know, it honestly probably hurt him just as much or even more than me losing, because he spent 4 full years, you know, coaching. I mean, of course he was coaching other guys, but, you know, he was coaching me and a couple other guys. So it meant a lot to hear that from him. But after that, it kind of just sparked something into me that, you know, I wanted to wrestle in college. And at that point, I wasn't committed anywhere.
And that kind of changed things. You know, Brett, to go back a little bit about what we were talking about before, like how your dad was with you and stuff like that, and how that will serve you outside of wrestling.
Right.
You know, I want you guys to win state titles. I want our guys to win national championships. I like seeing them go to college and
Right.
do great things and all that stuff. But everything that got you to that state finals is still going to serve you again outside of that. So yeah, you want to, you want to win that match, but it's an
Right.
extremely good accomplishment making it to the finals. And some people will probably be like, oh, it's a bad attitude. You got to win and that's it. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think if you work your tail off and it just happens to be like that, then it happens to be like that. And you got to, I think you're tougher if you lick your wounds and you move on.
Right.
If you're like, I needed to win. You're a high school kid, so you should have been upset like that. But Chris coming through and saying what he said was the right thing to say. Obviously, he knew that, he cared about you, still does, obviously. And it kind of, like you said, it fired you up. So what happened? How'd you end up choosing to go to Buffalo? And did you say, okay, I'm going to take a visit? Like what? So how did all that kind of fall into place?
Yeah. So before I answer that, also Coach Weaver, I got to throw him a shout out too. Of course, he came back and gave me a hug, and
yeah, he's a great
he was always a great coach and always super supportive. So that same thing that I always had that layer of support. So I got to make sure I give him a shout out too.
Of course. And I will even jump in on that where
Right.
I don't know if I ever been in a practice room other than section practices with Coach Weaver. So I have no idea about his technical savviness and whatever, but he is, I will say, just knowing him as a person, he cares a lot about his athletes and he
Absolutely.
is there for them and he's going to figure out how to help them and make them better. And I appreciate that because I don't think every coach is like that. So
that's right on the money. I mean, he always cared about every kid. It didn't matter if you were the starter.
Yep.
Or if it was your first year wrestling and you probably didn't even win one match, he was always super supportive and almost like a father figure to a lot of the guys on the team,
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I feel like we need more guys like that. So hopefully.
Right. And I feel like that's, when I watch you guys coach and the relationship you guys have, I feel like you have that same quality. So it definitely goes a long way. Even if people don't say they appreciate it, it's definitely there.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I don't like the Bellas, so.
All right.
Funny side story, real quick, Brad, about John. It was we were at States actually one year. I forget, maybe Scotty Wynn's year or something like that, and it was me, Coach DeBellis, this guy Marino was another one of our coaches. And do you remember Danny Hall a little bit?
I don't.
If you saw him, you might remember. He was tatted up. He was in practice around your time. He would come and help out every once in a while.
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, big muscular guy. But
yeah.
All four of us were sitting at a table at that steakhouse. What's that steakhouse called over there?
Oyster Club, Jack's Oysters.
Jack's, yeah. So we're sitting there, and of course John's there because John needs to get his good meal in, right? So John comes over, and he says, "I'm jealous." I go, "What?" He goes, "All four of you seem like you guys just get along." And I have been fortunate, I joke, but like I have been fortunate that me and Coach Bells do get day one, letting me coach the way I want to coach and, cared about put the kids first, and right. I feel like that's what Jamie does. And I love guys like that, and like I said before, I think people will be surprised. There's less people like that than they think,
Absolutely.
Not everybody, a lot of people are in it for them and not for the kids, which is a problem. But so anyhow, so they came back and talked to you. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. So college. So initially, going into States, I wasn't really even sure I wanted to wrestle in college. I was pretty big into lacrosse.
Okay.
And I had some opportunities to play Division III lacrosse. Nowhere crazy like Oneonta, maybe a couple other schools. But after taking second at States and still having that sour taste in my mouth, I decided I want to wrestle. So I visited Maryland. I talked to Kerry McCoy a little bit and went down there. So that was pretty cool. And I went to George Mason. And then I got back and, I was leaning towards Maryland, but it was pretty expensive. And, to pay that much for school, I wasn't that great in high school that I was going to get a full scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple weeks later, maybe, a week later, I called Binghamton because I'm like, all right, where else can I go? I'm thinking about college too, and I want to be an engineer. Yeah. I called Binghamton. I talked to their coach, like, hey, listen, if you really want to do this, we could get you in. Let me know within a week, and, we'll get you accepted. And then I can't remember if I called Buffalo or if they gave me a call. And I ended up getting that call, visiting them, walking around the campus, talked to the coaches a little bit, and I liked what I saw. And I drove back home that same day and just decided that I was going to commit there.
You didn't go in the middle of the winter, did you? Because Buffalo is not fun in the winter.
No.
I think it was like March or April, one of those months.
It's clearing up a little bit.
You know, I know a lot of guys that went to Buffalo, and Brett, I think, is the only one that finished all 4 years. So many guys went there and was like, "Yeah, we're out."
Yeah.
You don't remember this, Brett, probably, but you guys had like some crazy blizzard, and I texted you because it was all over the news.
Yeah.
It was like insane. And I texted you, and I think you showed me a picture of like the back of your I think you might have been living off, I don't know, but like it was literally covered. You couldn't get like out a door. Like it was covered with snow. I was like, oh my God, why would you want to do that? But like, I actually, you know, it's interesting. I remember some of this. I remember the Maryland discussion now that you bring it up. It's bringing back a little bit of memories.
Right.
But so what made you kind of fall in love with Buffalo when you first went to visit that you're like, this is where I want to be?
I think a couple things. Well, one, you know, I wanted to be an engineer, and I knew they were a good school.
Okay.
So that lined up, you know, school. And then wrestling, I knew they were, you know, they weren't that great back then, but, you know, talking to the coach, and I think we had like a pretty high recruiting class, so that was another positive. And then it was still in New York, so I'm paying that state school price, and it's, you know, 5.5 hours away. So it's far enough where, you know, I get my space and privacy and everything. But if I want to come home, you know, a weekend or for Christmas, it's feasible. So it wasn't like, you know, there wasn't like one thing, but it all kind of just added up, and it seemed like it worked out pretty good.
You know, Coach, what's so impressive about what Brett's saying too is what high school kid is thinking, even if your parents are saying it to you, right? What high school kid is saying, all right, well, I could get the in-state cost if I go to Buffalo, and, you know, I'm only so far away from home that I could come to Christmas and it would be feasible. Like, you know, Brett's always had a past his years and maturity, I feel like, with stuff like that. So to give a little backstory for the people listening, hopefully, you know, they're listening. The coach at Buffalo, and I'll let Brett talk about him, but he was at Bloomsburg, Stutzman, right? Is that how you say it, Stutzman?
Right. Yeah.
He was at Bloomsburg when I was in college, and he was kind of notorious of being a hard-nosed guy, and Bloomsburg sucked until he got there, right? So he took a program that was nothing and put them on the map. So people were saying, you know, that he was going to go to Buffalo, which was a bigger university, and here's his opportunity to really put his name on the map as a coach. Now, I think he made Buffalo better, but maybe it didn't happen exactly as it was drawn out. There's mixed feelings there. Some people like Kyle Davis did not have a great experience at Buffalo. Others did, you know. Maybe talk about your college experience a little bit.
Yeah, so, you know, going into college, I remember first off, like, being pretty intimidated because it's kind of like, you know, going into high school for the first time, but it's even like times 10 going into college. So it was pretty cool though. I think we had like 17 or 15, something like that, freshman recruiting class. So we all kind of came in together. And I got there, and basically everyone else knew someone from, you know, being in Western New York wrestling or recruiting visits. So I got there the first day, and I didn't know a single person. They're like, who the hell is this kid?
Yeah.
But, you know, it ended up being pretty good, and it was tough. I mean, we sucked my first year. We had a lot of young guys. I think we had an APR ban, so that just meant that we couldn't wrestle at Max or the NCAAs. And there was a lot of running, a lot of hard conditioning, and kind of just learning how to be tough. And I'd say, you know, that's one of the biggest things I've learned from wrestling at Buffalo. It's just how to kind of push past your limits and just be tough. So, you know, wrestling there for 5 years definitely took a toll on my body. Like you said, it's kind of like that, just like that grinding mentality in wrestling. So you go hard, you know, you go forward, and you kind of try and wear the guy down. So,
but for you, Brett, you were already a really tough guy, I thought, as a high school wrestler. I know high school and college are different. Was it hard for you to adapt to that level of toughness, or were you kind of like, okay, this is my mindset, it's just another scale higher? Were you put it this way, did you have an easier time than the other 16 freshmen maybe?
No.
Okay.
Well, so, you know, I was always competing hard and running hard.
Yeah.
But I probably weighed like 188, and I was wrestling 184. So there was a lot of guys just who were men, and I was weak.
Yeah.
And I remember I actually listened to a little bit of Kyle Davis's talk with you guys, and he said like he got his, you know, butt kicked, and I had the same thing happen to me. Like, I was wrestling people, let's just say, you know, they were not great wrestlers, and I was getting my butt kicked. I remember being so tired at practice, like I could barely stand up. So it was definitely a wake-up call. But after you get, you know, rid of that, or past that like first 6 months, and I'm sure you still remember it, once you get past that 6 months and that first winter, you kind of start to develop that college style and that hand fight
It's crazy. It's crazy how quick. And coach, you probably remember too. Like when I went to college, my same thing as you, Brett. I got my butt kicked.
Right.
I was doing good with the freshmen, but the older guys
Yeah.
on the team, I was getting my butt kicked. And I remember the first takedown I got in the starter, and it was like January.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like it was deep in there. But when I came home for like Christmas break for a week or whatever it was, kids in the club that used to kind of hang with me a little bit, I was destroying because I was a
Right.
different person.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. It could be maturity, but it's so crazy how quickly that happens when you go into college in the first like 3 or 4 months. Because I think you're kind of fighting for your life, right? You're kind
Oh,
of fighting for your
absolutely.
life and you figure it out because it's like a survival mechanism and you learn how to survive. And all of a sudden, by surviving against these superstars, now
Right.
you're a man now, you know. Do you think that kind of happened to you? You had to survive, kind of.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it's like if you get past that first winter,
You're
I
good.
think you're good because you have, especially now, when I was in college, we had Snapchat, Instagram. You see all your good friends from college partying, and then they all come home together, right? And they're hanging out, having a good time, and you're stuck in Buffalo or wherever else you're at, and you're getting your butt kicked every day. So you definitely need that desire to either win or that passion for wrestling to kind of overcome a lot of those tough times.
Coach, you could jump on this too. We had, I don't know what happened at Buffalo, but to
Mhm.
be honest about Hofstra is in the fall we would go out, we would have some fun. In
Right.
the spring we would go out, in the summer we would go out. We never did anything too crazy, but we would have a couple of beers here and there and stuff like that.
Right.
Winter though, we were serious. We didn't do that.
Absolutely.
We didn't do that. And I kind of remember feeling like a little tired and bummed out about it sometimes, but at the same time, I kind of felt cool about it because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm doing something bigger than what those guys are doing, and I kind of appreciated, like in my head, my birthday's Christmas, and my 21st birthday, we were going to Southern Scuffle 3 days after my birthday. And I remember like yesterday, being on a bike, Christmas night,
Yeah.
12 pounds over and trying to get my weight down a little bit. So be a little closer for the bus ride. And most people would hate that. But in my head, I'm like, who else could tell this story when they're 50 that on my 21st birthday, I wasn't like everybody else drinking and getting hammered. I was cutting
Right.
weight, and that's, I'll tell Luca that story. I'm like, your dad was tough. He wasn't out partying. He was on a bike, working his
Right.
butt off. Do you ever look at it like that? Because I feel like there's two ways to kind of see it sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely, it's kind of like you talked about. It was like you feel like you're missing out, but then at the same time, you got all your best friends on the wrestling team, and that's when you really grow that brotherhood. At first you're kind of like strangers, and you're all doing the same thing, but when you get through those tougher moments when you got to go in the sauna, even though you're not supposed to, maybe allegedly you were in the sauna, maybe doing a little extra biking. You ate too much. For Christmas or something. It was the same thing. So it was pretty awesome to kind of feel like you have,
Family almost.
yeah, you got a family, and you also feel like you got a little something on like the other people who didn't wrestle. Like, I don't know, almost like an edge. You know what I mean? Like that you're doing something that a lot of people have never
We've
experienced.
talked about that before. Like I think about stuff like that sometimes. Like what I
Yeah.
said with the teaching thing, I know it's such like a minute little thing, but like when they're complaining, I think about like things I had to do at Hofstra and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're complaining because you got one prep instead of two today? Like what in the
Yeah.
world? Like it just doesn't it doesn't register. And I know a lot of people don't really listen to this. So like I have a coworker he's an all right guy. He's good. He's whatever. But like he'll come in and he'll be like, oh, I'm so tired. I played football with my friends this weekend. No. And they'll like stretch out. I'm like, dude, what? Like you wouldn't last a minute in my world. Like, what are you talking about? Like, but you have to be nice, right? You have to be pleasant. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, who are you? So like, it is a brother. Like Coach DeBellis is in that brotherhood. You're in that brotherhood. I'm in that brotherhood. Anybody that took it to the next level, I feel like it's just a different world. And I'll tell you this right now. And Coach DeBellis is a great example of it. I barely talk to anybody from high school anymore. My closest friends are my college teammates.
Yeah.
And Coach DeBellis is like about 10 or so years older than me. And he's super close with his college teammates. It doesn't go away. Like
Right.
those are your brothers, and I remember at States, and you could talk about your relationship with your teammates, but I remember at States this year, we're in the locker room, Brett and I with Matt Kelly, and I don't know if AJ was in there, somebody else was in there, I think.
Yeah.
And Brett's college teammates in there.
Yeah.
And they're both coaching and they're buddies. And it's like you see that as you go through. And I find that to be pretty interesting and awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, coming back and actually going to high school states for the first time since I graduated and was actually there competing. I had probably like 5 or 6 college buddies there, either watching their brothers or coaching another team. So it's kind of, a reunion. And I remember, seeing you in there, and we were hanging out, that night. We didn't have to make weight anymore. So we went out to the bar and, just had a good time and hung out. So it's pretty cool that you always have that connection. It doesn't matter if you don't see them for, a month or a year. It's always there.
You pick up where you left off, And we see you Coach DeBellis is like the legend. Like we go to the Oswego tournament pretty much every year, and
Right.
that's where he went to college. We didn't go last year because Luca was born. We like a lot of things happened, like kind of screwed
Right.
us up. And obviously this year we're probably gonna miss it 2 years in a row because of COVID. But hopefully next year we're back in the swing of things. But when this man goes there, like everybody knows him. Like the gas station attendant knows him. It's like what in the world? Like you literally know everything. Coach, how'd you become such a legend? Is my question to you.
Good cook, I guess.
But anyway, so
That's from my cousin Vinny.
yeah, I didn't get your reference. I'm just gonna.
It went over my head.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's for the rest of the thousands that are watching.
Listen,
It's
Joe
for
Rogan,
Rudy Giuliani.
Joe Rogan, watch your back. Rudy Giuliani is probably watching. He has COVID. Anyhow. So real quick, because I want to touch on coaching before we wrap up, because I think that's a nice little layer for you. But I do want to talk about how college, I feel like, went kind of similar to high school in a sense, where I don't think you reached your end goal in college, but
No.
Division I wrestling is a dog. Like it's tough, and to be able to be that guy, to go out there and win a conference championship, a tough conference with Missouri in it, and some really powerhouse teams, to go win that conference championship and then go compete.
Awesome.
You jump levels. But coach, his freshman sophomore year, he wasn't as successful. So kind of talk about how it's very similar to high school.
Right.
Talk about your college experience a little bit.
Yeah, so freshman year, I wrestled 184. And just like in high school, I was light for the weight class. I don't think I honestly cut anything more than like 3 or 4 pounds, which, being in a college practice, you lose 5 in an hour and a half practice. So I lost a lot of matches. I still remember the first match I won though. So we were at a tournament in Appalachian State, and we were doing like a dual tournament, and coach was like, Brett, you might redshirt this year. I'm just going to bring you along, kind of feel out the experience and everything. So I was like, all right. I went kind of just as a spectator, but still warming up with the team.
Yeah.
We ended up losing our first match, and I guess the guy, who was there in front of me, he just had a bad match or whatever. So he pulled him, and he's like, Perry, you're in the next match. So dude, I shit my pants. I mean, I was so nervous. I was kind of there to like, see what wrestling's about. And I remember we were wrestling Appalachian State. I wrestled this kid who was huge. Like he was jacked, like straight up a man. And he got to my legs probably 1,000 times, but I just did like, my leg up in the air, and I did my splits. I ended up getting him so tired I beat him in overtime. So awesome. I had a few wins, and they were pretty awesome. But like high school, it was a lot of defeats. And then going into sophomore year, I redshirted that year. And, I had some more wins going to some open tournaments. I think I won, a couple lower level ones, nothing with like Ohio State or Penn State. And, I redshirted there. And then my redshirt sophomore year, my third year, I had a pretty good year. I was going at 84, and it was pretty tough for me to cut weight. I don't have a lot of fat on me. So in the summer, I got up to probably like 204, and now I'm cutting down to 184 with, just losing straight muscle.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I think I took like 5th at the MAC, but I was predicted, or, I was on track to be a national qualifier that year.
Yeah.
And I choked at Max, and I ended up being the first alternate. So, I was supposed to win a couple matches that I literally, beat those guys before, but, being a little young and whatever happened. So I was the first alternate.
The weight cut's draining for that whole year too. You probably weren't the same guy you were halfway through the season after making weight all year.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I agree. So that was really tough on me, that weight cut. And then I think, I was just a tough wrestler. So I thrived on making the other guy tired, but I would get so tired, and I didn't have a lot of juice in my legs, or, just my endurance from being drained. So, I took 5th there, and then junior year, it kind of, I was going up, and then my junior year, I hit a wall. And mentally it was tough, just, didn't get along with the coaching staff a little bit, had a couple of hiccups there, and I started wrestling bad. And that year I was cutting way too much weight. I mean, I think I was up to 208 in the summer, and that was me not even trying to put on weight. And I went back to 84. So I would go out every match. My legs would be dead. I'd be drained before I got out there. And on top of that, if you have a bad mentality going into those matches, it's even tougher.
Snowball. You said like you had a little hiccup with the coaches. You're cutting a lot of weight. You're hitting this wall. You're losing matches. It probably affected you. Like just rolled.
Yeah, exactly. So even going to practice was tough. I remember hating wrestling, and I honestly I probably quit 1,000 times in my head, but I knew I could never actually quit. So I made it through the year. It ended shitty. It was kind of on bad terms, and then I was like, I got to change something up. And my dad, he told me to bump up to 197 probably for the past 2 years, and I didn't listen to him. And finally, I was like, you know what, I got to go up. So I went 197, talked to my coaches. Not that I needed their approval. Like, if I wanted to go, I would have went, but they said it was all right. I didn't have full support, but, after I started winning some matches and gaining that confidence like we talked about, it's funny. At Eastern States in high school, that's where I built my confidence. And then at Midlands in college is where I started getting a lot of wins. I think I won like 6 or 7 matches in a row, ended up taking 8th. So, I built a lot of confidence, started winning some matches. And I was also
8th in Midlands.
8th in Midlands.
Listening is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like
that's huge.
That's probably the second toughest tournament in college. So go on.
I don't
just
know
to make sure that
who
people
else placed at Midlands around us.
Yusuf.
Probably Real Buto, Yusuf.
Ryan didn't go, I don't think, but Yusuf and John did actually back in the day. But I just
John
wanted to interject real quick because the people that are listening, I want, we shouldn't gloss over that. Midlands is a really big tournament. But you started, so you won like 7 in a row. You took 8th at Midlands.
Right. So, yeah, and at this time, too, I kind of forgot to mention, in the beginning of my redshirt senior year, I lost my wrestle off. So I beat the kid. He was a sophomore, Sam Schuyler. He's a really good friend of mine. I was beating him, and I kind of just had a brain fart. A lot kind of going on, and I ended up losing. So that whole year, the whole first half of the year, I need to battle. Every day I'm wrestling with him. So it's like I got this chip on my shoulder that I can't just go to practice and wrestle. I got to beat this guy up every day or show the coaches that, I'm the man and I should be starting. So, I had that going the whole year, and a lot of, talking to my dad, kind of keeping me on track. And we get to the MAC tournament. And I think at this point I'm seeded 3rd. I lost to a guy from Southern Illinois, and kind of like a bad match. You know those matches where you just don't wrestle like yourself?
Yeah.
It was one of like those. He actually beat me up, and I think it was close, but he probably was super confident at, the conference tournament. So anyways, going into Max, actually, we're driving 12 hours to go to Max, right? And before I get on the bus, I jog to the bus, my back seizes up. So I got this really, really bad, I don't want to call it a stinger, but like I was like standing around like this.
Yeah.
So before the MAC tournament, that day, 2 days before practice, and then the day before I practiced for like 30 minutes. So I was in like pretty bad shape, but I think that kind of let I don't know, I wasn't worrying about wrestling. I was just worrying about getting healthy. So I ended up going to Max. Yeah, so end up finally feeling a little better. And, I go out there, my first match, I think I beat the guy like 12-2 or something, major the guy. I re-wrestled the guy who beat me. I beat him like 7-2 or 7-3. And then I had the finals and ended up, I think I won like 5-2. So it was a pretty awesome experience.
Great tournament, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you beat a
That's
Missouri
an
guy?
automatic berth into the NCAAs.
Yeah,
Yes, I had to win. So we only had, for 197 for the max, we only had 1 bid. So going into that match, I know I had to win. So it was a little stressful.
Wow.
Coach,
Yeah.
you want to know
That's crazy.
a couple of things I want to point out before we move on. One is, you said you were talking to your dad and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember like yesterday walking into the polling tournament, and RCK was there, and Chris and your dad both approached me and said that they think that you could do all these great things. I'm like, yeah, he's doing good. He just has to be focused. He has to believe in himself. He can do it. And it was that year. And I'm sure your dad was like almost giving off to me kind of what he was giving off to you. He was just talking to me about it. And I was like, yeah, Brett's the man. And your dad, but it showed how much your brother and your dad cared. Obviously, that, but for them to, come to me and we're talking about it, right? Like it was on their, brain. I thought that was interesting. I also found interesting is when Brett's at his junior year, when he hit that wall kind of, He's like, I probably quit 1,000 times, but I knew I couldn't quit. Well, that's not true. You could have quit. I think you're the type of person that just wouldn't quit. And I think that says something about your work ethic. And, me and you are more alike than you think, because my junior year, similar thing. I actually even I emailed my coach and quit, and I emailed him. I'm such a wuss. Like, why would I email him? Similar thing, like hit a wall, was having some hiccups with the coaches, and I actually lost to wrestle off 3-2 on a riding time point. They started me, and then they pulled his red shirt when I took 5th at a tournament, and it was my first time wrestling that weight class. So I felt very disrespected, and I'm like, why would so like I almost quit too, but again, couldn't do it.
Right.
We could have done it, right? But I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And I think that's something that, is very commendable of you. And I think it shows in your coaching and your wrestling. But who did you beat? Was it a Missouri kid in the finals?
No. So it was actually an Old Dominion kid. I think his name is Tim Young. So he was pretty good. We wrestled once before, and I beat him in a nail biter. I think I beat him like 6'5". So, going into that match, I was confident, but also nervous because he was one of those guys who could blast W, he could throw you. So I knew I had to watch out for some of his, quicker moves. But I knew I could beat him. I just had to, keep wrestling how I wrestled. So.
And you did.
Yeah. So that was
a good program. That's a tough conference. It's sad that Old Dominion actually just cut their team recently. It's a shame, but Old Dominion, Buffalo, Missouri. There's some good teams. Is Kent State there too? Central Michigan.
Yeah,
there's some good teams in there. So winning the MAC is something that you can definitely hang your hat on for your life. I mean, that's super, super impressive. So now you qualify for nationals. How's that go?
So that was honestly awesome, But before nationals, I actually had a couple. I don't know if they're injuries. So that we get back a couple of days, my hand gets infected pretty bad. So a lot of people don't know this, but I didn't wrestle probably for like 2 or 3, 4 days. My hand was swollen. I had like pain in my elbow, so I had to get like antibiotics. So everyone else is training for nationals. I was like, this is about to be the biggest tournament of my career, and I got to take a couple of days off. So that happened. And then I finally get back. I train a couple of days, and I get a stinger in my neck, so I have to take another couple of days off. So it was kind of like, in a way, I want to say it was good because my body got to recover. And, I don't want to say those guys overtrained or anything, but the grind of the season gets to you, and those injuries forced me to take some time and kind of, reevaluate some things and relax and let my body recover. So finally getting to nationals, I wrestled Colin Moore first round, and he beat me up, honestly. Going into the match, I thought I was going to win, but he was tough, and, I didn't probably prepare enough. And there's probably some things I could have done better, but he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
And then, I beat another guy from Appalachian State, this pretty good guy. I think he was seated 15th or something like that. And then I ended up losing to Josh Hokett from Fresno State. So I lost to the kid who took 3rd and also 5th, I think. So that was, it was a bummer. And, of course, I was angry and upset when I lost. But, I gave it everything I had, so.
I mean, it's a great way to, you want to, win it or All-American, but to get to the, especially in Division I wrestling, to get to that tournament, is a big deal, and to compete. It wasn't like you were like a guy that got pinned and you shouldn't have been there. You proved you should be there. I mean, you like you said, you lost to the guy that took 3rd and 5th, and you beat a top 15 guy. I mean, and again, the trajectory, right, from where you were your freshman year in college to that, it's just your work ethic and stuff. Now, we've been going for a while, so I don't want to go too much longer because I want people to actually try to watch this. So I'm going to just give you the straight up question, and you could, I'll give you a broad question. You could kind of say how you want. Coaching, right? So a couple things. How is it coaching with Chris? Because I know you guys are together coaching there in Poughkeepsie. How did you decide to get back into the club? And so far, how's your experience been? Because I think you're doing a fantastic job. And how is it all going for you?
Thanks. Yeah. So first off, thank you. I appreciate it. So Poughkeepsie is going great. Well, we had a couple of 2-month sessions. So coaching with Chris is pretty awesome. I helped him out, catch him a little bit, and I learned a lot from him, just like I learned a lot from you and John. So it's pretty cool to come full circle, and people that used to train me and they used to wrestle with me and beat me up and teach me all these things that now I could actually learn from them and instill all the things you guys taught me into other wrestlers. So I'm always thankful for everything you guys have done. As far as Empire, after finishing college, I came back home and, started working and started missing wrestling. So I decided I was going to coach again. And I actually was going to coach down at Hudson Valley because, I didn't think John needed another coach. So I was like, all right, let me call John, just let him know I'm going to coach at this club and, whatever it is, So I call him and he's like, what? Why are you going to coach there? I was like, I don't know. I want to coach. He's like, oh, come here. So long story short, I ended up coaching at Empire. And it's been pretty awesome. I went to a tournament the other day with a couple of the guys, and they did a great job. And it was awesome to be able to coach and then watch these guys listen and do the right things and win because of something you said. So I have a long way to go, and I'll probably make 1,000 more mistakes, and I'm still learning. But seeing how like John coaches and the technique he shows, it's so advanced that I'm learning from that aspect and everything that goes into coaching. So it's going great, and I'm looking forward to continuing that.
There's so many things that you said in there, Brett, that I think I should point out, but it's like it was just so quick in my head. Like,
yeah, I rambled a little bit there. Sorry.
No, it was great. It was great. I think it was a great answer. Like, like I said, again, you're way past your years. Like a lot of coaches with your pedigree wouldn't be saying, "Oh, I make mistakes and I'll make some more." Like you're way more experienced than 90% of the coaches that are out there, and people with less experience will never admit a mistake, right? And I haven't seen you make a mistake. I don't think you're making any, but like, to have that mentality is just going to make you a better coach. You're always a student. You're trying to learn, and I think what you said, you're grateful for like, Chris, me, John helping you, and you show these to the next generation. But on the flip side, and I'm sure Chris would say the same thing, I'm grateful for you because now I could steal stuff off of you. Like you take stuff that we taught, but like I remember, Coach DeBellis, he's very much like an AJ, and AJ's a kid, but a high thinker, right? A high level wrestling thinker. You've seen him in action, DeBellis, with his thing when we would drill and he would talk. We were going over last year something with a Russian, and Brett was showing something we were really talking through and thinking. I'm like, Brett's gonna be a good coach. Like he already was, but I'm like, he just knows how to connect with the kids. He knows how to talk about it, and he loves it. Like he gets it. It's just this thing, and so you're gonna do great with that. I also wanted to add in that I think Brett came to Empire at the perfect time because when Brett coach started at Empire, I think it was a little bit in the fall maybe, but he came like right before Luca was born.
Right.
So when when Brett was in high school through, Aaron Walk, Matt Schreiber, I ran pretty much every practice, right? And then all of a sudden Luca's born and my life's changing, right? So I have to kind of deal with that. And here comes Brett. And not only did he pick up the slack, he added the slack, right? He added to the slack. He's just doing a great job. I don't know if that makes sense, that term, added to the slack. But
it's a new term. You made it work.
It's mine and Coach DeBellis' podcast. I can do whatever the hell I want. But so he did that. I think that was he did a great job. I love seeing him at States. I love seeing him care. Watching Will Crandall and some of these other guys that he took a real interest to. I love seeing the passion, and I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. I'm really excited to see where his coaching keeps going in these next couple of years. So let's wrap this up. So we're not, Coach DeBellis has to probably go to sleep. It's probably past Coach's bedtime. How we normally wrap it up is I'll let Coach get his last words. I'll get mine, and then Brett, you clean us up, finish us up, and then we'll stop recording. So D, hit us.
Well, Brett, it was a great interview. Thank you so much. It was great to watch your career and how well you did in college. I knew your father back when he was a Mahopac coach, and he was always a great man. And watching your brother Chris come into the ranks, it's just, I just love seeing the younger guys coming in like Coach Satora, Chris, some of these other new coaches that are coming into the section and really elevating Section 1 to where we need to be in the state. We got to beat Section 11.
Yes.
In that state tournament. I mean, and we've had some good teams.
Right.
Yeah,
so I think with you and Torts and somebody and Chris and all these other guys, I think we're going to make that happen.
Would you
congratulations.
Would you still consider me a young coach? Or am I
you're younger than me. Hey, I'm one of the old guys now. When I came in, it was a Muso and.
Will we call you an old guy? There's older guys than you too. You're middle.
You look young. Middle age. You look young.
You look great.
Thank you.
So for me, there's so many things I could say. So I probably said them multiple times in the interview, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Brett, we appreciate you doing this. We take an hour and a half out of your day to jump on here. But two, you know, I appreciate your work ethic. I appreciate your caring. I appreciate your attitude. I appreciate that you appreciate, you know, and again, at the end of the day, it's not about us as coaches, but it does feel good to know that you made a difference with the kid, right? And that they care, and that they, you know, that they understand what you were trying to do for them, right? Some kids, it might go over their heads, or it might hit them 10 years later. It's one of those kind of, you know, as a 33-year-old, I was always really good with my dad. I loved him to death. But when I was a high school guy, I fought with him a little, argued here and there. I was respectful about it. When I was a little older, it hit me. I'm like, man, this guy did a lot for me. You know, it took me a little longer maybe for that to hit. I think it's hitting for you at a younger age, which is why I keep saying you're a little bit more mature for your age than most people. But we're really proud of you. I'm proud of how you stuck with it always. You never really, you faltered like any human being would, but you continue to go forward. And I bet you in life, there's going to be something that's going to hit you. You're going to have to falter a little bit, but you're going to continue to go forward because you're already doing it, right? You showed that you could do that. You have that mentality. And as I said 10 to 20 times already in this podcast, can't wait to see where your coaching career goes. You know, in 20, 30 years, when me and Coach Sabellis are maybe slowing it down, you're going to have a legend to you. There's going to be Brett Perry tutelage. Like, this guy was with Brett a lot. This guy was with Brett a lot. This guy, look how good that guy did. Look how good guy, you know, and I'm very excited to see how kind of it all pans out. I don't want it to happen too quick though, because I'm only 33. I'm still out here. I'm still out in these streets. So
don't worry, it won't.
All right, cool. But anyway, Brett, you can wrap it up, bud, and then we'll finish this thing.
All right, awesome. So first, obviously, Anthony and Mike, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking with you guys. And just thank you, you know, Anthony, in high school. I know I said it a couple of times, but you wrestled with me so much and you helped me elevate my game. So thank you. And thanks to John Deagle. You know, I'm coaching at Empire now, and, you know, my dad was his coach. So he's family to me. I love him, and he's taken me under his wing, and, you know, he's been so helpful as me becoming a better wrestler and a coach. So thank you, John. If you're watching this, you're probably not, but maybe someone will send you a clip or something. You know, my brother, my dad, and everyone else, my family, and whoever else has helped me as part of the journey. And, you know, I'm excited to continue coaching and keep learning. So thanks, guys, and that's all I got.
You're the man. And I'll just jump in and add, too, that John is very proud of Brett, because he talks about Brett's coaching ability all the time. So, you know, I figured I'd throw that in there for John. But, Brett, we appreciate you coming on. You're the man. Hang on for 1 second. I'm going to stop recording, okay?
All right. Sounds good.